where the moon lights.
An excellent day for an exorcism.
I'm your number one fan.
Hey up and welcome back to the Rate Scary podcast. My name is Zara, otherwise known as Scary Zara Mary, and I had a little week off last week, which was absolutely bloody lovely, if I'm honest, because I'd love to be this organised person that has episodes recorded weeks, months in advance, but I'm not. I'm very much hand to mouth. I record, edit, post, and it was nice just to have a little week off after a very, very busy week at work that I'd had. But I am back to it now. I have got a full week of recording this week where I am trying to be more organised. And we are back on torture for this week, which is lovely. And I have a guest joining me. I'm doing things a little bit differently this week because what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the episode and tell you about the film that we are going to be talking about, and then I will bring my guest on and introduce you. It's someone who you have met before. It is Sam from Horror, Halloween and Home. I am so excited to have her back on the podcast. She joined me as part of my Gothic series when we talked all things Crimson Peak, because it's one of her favourite films of all time. And I'm over the moon that I got her to come back on to talk about another of her favourite films as part of my torture series, which is Martyrs from 2008. Now, I'll bring Sam on in a minute, but first of all, let's go through the actual story of Martyrs. So in 1971, we have Lucy, who escapes from a slaughterhouse where she has been imprisoned and tortured for over a year. She's placed in an orphanage, and there she befriends a girl called Anna. Now, one day, Anna finds Lucy in a bathtub with cuts on her arm. Lucy begs Anna, do not tell anyone, and Anna embraces her, imploring her to not cut herself. But Lucy responds that it's not her who had done it. And later on, we see Lucy being attacked by this disfigured, demonic woman. We then cut to 15 years later, and Lucy, grown up a little bit at this point, is invading the home of what seems like a normal family who are called the Belfons. But she believes they were involved in her torture as a child, and she methodically kills each one of them with a shotgun, brutally. After this, she calls Anna and gives her the address of the house. And while waiting for Anna to arrive, the demonic woman attacks Lucy, stabbing her hand, cutting her back. It's absolutely horrendous. Lucy manages to flee the house and she encounters Anna, who tends to her injuries, and she enters the house despite Lucy warning her not to. Anna is absolutely horrified by the carnage that she finds, but she decides to help Lucy clean the crime scene and dispose of the bodies. Anna then kisses Lucy, but she rebuffs her, and Lucy is once again attacked by the woman and hides with Anna in a bedroom. Lucy recalls her escape, during which she ran from a pleading fellow prisoner all those years ago who begged for her help. Anna discovers the Belfon mother, and she's still alive, and she tries to help her escape, but Lucy catches them both and she beats the mother to death with a hammer. Lucy is then again attacked by the demonic woman, but all Anna can see is Lucy just hurting herself. And the woman resembles the victim that Lucy had left behind at the slaughterhouse, and we realise that this demonic woman is a psychological manifestation of Lucy's guilt. Lucy, realising this herself, then runs outside and kills herself by slitting her own throat. The following morning, Anna, while she's on the phone with her estranged, abusive mother, discovers a secret passageway in the home's living room, leading to this subterranean chamber containing photographs of torture. But she also finds a living, brutalized, completely emaciated woman, proving that Lucy's claims about the Belfons was true. Anna attempts to help the woman, who is completely hysterical. She's non-verbal, and she removes the steel blindfold that has been stapled to the woman's skull and helps to bathe her, only to find her later mutilating her own arm with a knife. A group of people then arrive at the house, kill the woman, and capture Anna. and the group's leader is identified only as Mademoiselle, explains that they belong to a secret society seeking to discover the secrets of the afterlife through the creation of martyrs. What they do is they capture individuals and inflict on them systematic acts of torture, believing that their physical suffering will result in some sort of transcendental insight into the world beyond. And although they've only produced victims who have succumbed to the pain and were completely unable to speak, the group is determined to create martyrs who accept their suffering and report their visions of the afterlife, and Anna becomes the group's newest subject. After a period of being brutally beaten and degraded, Anna is told that she has progressed further than any other subject the group has had, and she has reached the final stage, demonstrating her acceptance of her fate. She is surgically flayed alive, so all of her skin is removed right down to the muscle, and she reportedly enters an ecstatic state. Mademoiselle arrives eager to learn Anna's secrets, and Anna whispers into her ear. Members of the society then gather at the house to pay veneration to Anna for her martyrdom and hear Mademoiselle's announcement of the groundbreaking testimony. Now, meanwhile, Mademoiselle has locked herself in a bathroom and she is getting ready, and Etienne, her assistant, asks her from outside the door if what Anna said was clear. She unequivocally confirms and asks him in turn if he can imagine what comes after death. After he says no, Mademoiselle produces a handgun, tells him to keep doubting, and shoots herself. In the final scenes, we get a title explaining that martyr is Greek for witness, and the film ends with a shot of Anna lying completely catatonic on a table, seemingly looking at something far away. And during the credits, we see home movies of Anna and Lucy as children. Hello, Sam. Thank you so much for joining me again.
Hello, thank you for having me back again. I'm so excited.
Of course. Well, you joined me for Crimson Peak as part of my Gothic series, which is one of your favourite Gothic horrors.
Yeah.
And now you're back here today to talk about one of your favourite torture horrors, which is Martyrs.
Martyrs, with my Martyrs t-shirt on because I'm that guy.
Always representing when you come on here. I love it. I'm going to have to try and invite you to as many podcast episodes as possible and just see if you've got a t-shirt to go with the
T-shirt
film.
challenge, because I probably have.
Oh, I am a big fan of the Martyrs t-shirt there. I love that. Where
It's
is
very
that
good.
from?
It says
Keep doubting.
Keep doubting on the sleeve. It's so cool. I can't remember. It's one of those lovely little companies that just does like bootlegs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't remember which one it was from, but when they did it, I lost my tiny mind.
Yeah.
And ordered it immediately. And it's one of those things that like I wear all the time because it's really comfy and I bought it oversized. So it's just always on, and very rarely does anybody know what it is. But I think I wore it at For the Love of Horror the one evening last year, and loads of people were like, cool, you like Martyrs. And I was like, I do, hello.
Oh, you can always count on a horror convention for people to pick up on the weirdness that we have. I love that. Yeah. Oh, cute. Well, I'm glad you're back to talk about Martyrs, because it's a film that we were chatting before off record, and I watched it many years ago for the first time, and it was always a film where I was like, well, never going to watch that again because of how it's made me feel. And I was quite pleased actually to come back to it this time around in preparation for the podcast episode and actually enjoy it, appreciate it.
It's allowed. Enjoy is allowed.
Yeah. When was the first time you watched it?
Oh, probably only about 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
Because of the like legend around it, I guess. Like I was aware of it as people saying it's the most disturbing movie they've ever seen. It's the most disgusting movie they've ever seen. It's the most insert descriptor here. So I was always like, oh, I need to watch this film. And I love French extreme cinema. But I was always too scared. So like I did pick up a copy on Blu-ray maybe 5 years ago, and it sat on my shelf for a very long time because I kept thinking like, I'm not ready for this today. I'm
Yeah.
not ready for this today. Until one day I was really feeling like the biggest pile of shit in the entire world. And I was like, today is the
Now
day
is
I'm
the
going to watch
time.
this movie. And the first time I watched it, I was really disappointed
Yeah.
because I'd had it hyped up so much that it was like this extreme movie. I was like, is that it by the end? And I know that's because I'm dead inside and I've seen so much now that I'm just like, it's not that bad. But I liked it, and I remember just sitting there for a half an hour, just like staring, like, what did I just watch? But I was disappointed. But I went back to rewatch it the next day, and then I watched all the special features on my Blu-ray. And then a few days later, my friend came over and I was like, we are watching Martyrs. So I watched it 3 times in a week,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and then hadn't watched it since until last week, just to like refresh my brain. Um, yeah, I went full into like hyperfixation with it. Just kept watching it, and I've been meaning to do an episode on Martyrs myself, of just being like, and then this happened, and then I did this. So hopefully I'll be a bit more like, controlled talking to you. But yeah, I just got obsessed with it and just sat there like reading loads of stuff and watching loads of stuff and trying to like find out everything I could. Like, what does it mean? I think
Well,
still don't know if I know everything, but
this is part of the
got very
reason why I
excited.
wanted you on here, because it's not a film that I feel like I could talk loads about, because I feel like even though I've watched it fairly recently, it's almost like I've watched it for the first time again, because there had been so long between that first time watching it and that second time watching it. I think I'd done the same as you and almost built it up in my head as, I remember watching it that first time round and feeling quite empty afterwards and thinking, I don't want to deal with this feeling again watching a film. But now, as a woman in my 30s, bleak films like
Hmm.
this are my thing.
Comfort films.
Yeah. And I had a completely different feeling, but I was so apprehensive going into this film, partly because of how I felt the first time and those memories of how I felt, but also similar experience to you, people hyping it up and saying it's so extreme and it's brutal and la la la. And I couldn't remember any of that. So I was really nervous about, oh God, what did I blank some of that stuff out? Was it really
Mm.
that bad that I've had to block those memories from my mind? And actually, same as you, I don't know if I'm just a bit dead on the inside, but it was nowhere near as extreme as
No.
people have made out. And I'd quite happily watch it again. And as with what happened with Crimson Peak, we talked about Crimson Peak and I immediately went away and rewatched it because I was like, I've got to look at the costumes now because we've talked about them. I'll probably end up rewatching it after we've had this conversation, so I'm fully prepared for that this time.
Yay. It's one of my favorite things is like really enjoying it in like a bleak, depressing,
Oh,
extreme
yeah.
film. And then people listening to my recommendation and going to watch it and then be like, what the fuck,
Why
Sam?
did you make me watch
Like the
that?
coffee table. Like so many
Yeah.
people watched the coffee table because I was so excited about it, and then they were just like, what the fuck, Sam? And I'm just like, tee hee.
Best feeling ever.
It's so fun. I love it. And I'm always like, oops, soz.
Oh, well, it's nice to have someone on to talk about, like, with passion, Martyrs. I've already gone through the story, but I thought it would be good to touch on. I know you messaged me about this because it fits into this subgenre of horror that is referred to as torture porn. And I've tried
Mhm,
to, I've like half used that phrase throughout the podcast because it's not a
mhm,
term I get on board with, but it's the term that these films are known as, is torture porn, sometimes splatter, sometimes just torture. A couple of questions for you. First of all, how do you feel about that term? Because I know that you feel strongly. And second of
mhm.
all, how does Martyrs fit into that subgenre for you?
So really don't like torture porn, and I think that as a phrase, but torture
Yeah.
porn's great. Um, because I think it's just the word porn used with things, same as when people say like food porn or wherever porn. It just feels really uncomfortable to me
Yeah.
to like equate, a really nice sandwich to porn. Like it's just weird.
Yeah.
And I think I will be the first person to put my hand up and say, yeah, I love watching gory films. I love watching,
Mm.
disgusting shit. Like amazing, love it. But most of the time I want a story with it. And when I'm watching the torture, it's part of the story and it's part of the process. And to me, the phrase torture porn sounds like it is just torture for gratification
Yep.
thing. And there is porn out there that will be torture,
Yep.
there'll be actual snuff stuff. And I think that crosses over into a completely different territory when you start saying torture porn. And like when that phrase popped up, I used to use it. Like I remember going to see Saw 5 and 6 in the
Mm.
cinema and being like, that's just torture porn. And aside, I now appreciate those as the masterpieces that every single installment apart from Spiral is. Um, because I didn't see anything more than just like, oh, well, it's about guts and gore.
Mm.
But they, I don't feel like anything in any film I've seen with like torture stuff is done purely for gratification.
Yep.
And it's the same with like sexual assault. Like sometimes some films you're like, the camera on this is a bit too lechy and it goes from being like a sexual assault as a plot point to being a sexual assault for
As a
titillation
gratification
almost.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
just feel like putting those two words together is a very different thing.
Mm.
So like just calling it torture is great. Like splatter's great as well, but I also feel like that veers into another territory as well of like just like the really weird gory stuff. But like
Yeah.
I know I mentioned to you before, there's an author, I need to check her name because I'll forget it. It's Ariel Powers Sharp, and she's written a book that came out last year, which I haven't read yet, but is on my list to like pick up and read, called New Millennial Nasties. So
Yes.
that's like a phrase. I think the premise of the book is like writing about all these like really gross films that sort of came out as a result of, well, a lot of it was spurred on by 9/11, wasn't
9/11.
it? And sort of
Mm.
what the horrific things people were seeing on the telly, and all of a sudden, like everyone had to up the ante in what they were doing in their films. And I think that phrase is also very good as like describing
Yeah.
those films. I know it's not a widely like maybe understood term. I mean, it's easy to understand, obviously, but you know what I mean? Like people wouldn't immediately associate those films. But I think that's quite interesting. And I think that book is going to be really interesting because I do love torture films. I love Hostel and Saw
Yep.
and, I think pretty much all the films on your list I've seen and really enjoy.
Mm.
So I don't know. Does that make me weird? It's like an existential question as well, isn't it? It's like, am I like I enjoy them because I'm like, oh, that's gross, bones, guts. But I don't feel any like gratification from it, and especially not sexual gratification. And there
No.
will be people out there who do, and I'm not gonna yak their yum. Like if they do, and it's like fake or whatever, great, do it. But I don't get any of that
No.
gratification from it. I'm just enjoying the story, and because I'm a little nerd, I'm like, oh, look at the bladder they've used there to like
Yep.
do that blood flow, and look at the appliance they've used there. Like I like appreciating the art that goes into creating
Yes.
that disgusting stuff, but I don't get any like perverse. Well, I don't know. Maybe people think enjoying that is perverse, but not in a porny way. I don't know. Am I making any sense?
You are making sense. And I think I would agree with you as well, because I talked in my very first episode about the fact that I was going to try not to refer to it as
Hmm.
torture porn throughout, would do occasionally because that's what people recognize it as. But
Yeah.
also, I think porn has such negative connotations attached to it still that you then associate sexual porn with then
Hmm.
these films. And actually, often sex isn't a feature. in
Yeah.
torture films, and it reduces it down to purely torture, when actually in a lot of torture films it's so much more than that, which is why I remember you messaging me about the book. Like, this New Millennial Nasties is a much better description, because it's not reducing it down to just that one thing. Because I find with typically torture films, the themes are fantastic. Guilt and revenge, and kind of, you get really fantastic character arcs in torture films, like kind of defeat of someone or an experience and triumph through hardship. They're often themes that come through in torture films, but you don't think of that when you think of the term torture porn. It reduces it down to something that's sticky and gooey and is about gratification of what you see on the screen. And that's not what those films are about. Some of them are, and like you say, that's absolutely fine. And if some people read it as that, that's cool. But I don't think it's fair to the people that create those films or appear in those films to purely reduce it down to just that one or two things. So
yeah, and you asked about like how Martyrs fits in.
yeah,
Like, I find it like, I mean, I get easily offended when it's things I love, but like, I feel offended for like Martyrs to be called torture porn, for like for breaking down those reasons, because like there is torture in this film, but it is part of a wider story, and
yes,
there's a huge story there, and the torture is just part of it.
yeah,
It's not, the film doesn't exist for the torture exists within the film.
yes,
Like you said, to like boil it down to like that just most basic level, like, it's offensive to, like you said, everyone who's in it, everyone who's made it. Yes, there's torture in it. Yes, it's over the top. It's done for pleasure, but in a completely different way. And I think like what does happen in Martyrs is beautifully presented as well. Like, it's
yes,
gross, but also it looks beautiful and it's artistically done. And there's no, like we said about sex, like there's no sex in Martyrs.
no,
Like, there's no shots for titillation. There's naked women in it, but never once is a
not
shot.
sexualized though, not done through the male gaze. No.
So
And
I just think,
actually, one of the biggest torture scenes that you have in the film, you don't actually see. So, like the flaying right at the end, you don't see it happen. You just see the before and then the aftermath.
but they've
And
spared us that
yeah,
because it's
exactly.
not for our gratification, it's for the story. So
Yeah.
it's never going to change. It's one of those things.
No.
Like, en masse, everyone's going to call it torture porn, and that's fine. And sometimes, like I said, I will use that phrase because it's like common vernacular when we're talking about horror. And if you say torture porn as a subgenre, people know what you mean. If you said New Millennial Nasties, they'd be like,
What?
what's that?
Yeah.
They could figure it out eventually, but so it's a phrase I do use sometimes, but like I don't like it
Yeah.
because I think this film is a masterpiece. Like, I think it is genuinely brilliant, and it just makes me feel icky to think of it as being porn, and then it makes me feel icky that I'm like, well, I mean, sometimes like when I watch this film, I think, what is wrong with me, because I love it so much, but not in a sex way or a creepy way or a pervy way. I just think it's a beautiful piece of art.
Well, and I think it's difficult to put Martyrs into. It does fit within this torture subgenre, but to refer to it as torture porn would feel wrong because it's so deeply rooted in feminism. The themes within it are around, like, there's a religious aspect to it, so it would feel wrong to have porn attached to it for that reason. It's existential and bleak. Yeah. So like those sort of things just don't go with each other to refer to it as torture porn. Whereas something like Hostel, which I rewatched this week and I'm going to talk about in a different episode, it's got sex in it. It's about guys going away and having a great time and shagging birds, and you get that gratification of blood and gore and guts on screen. I can kind of understand how that would fit into torture porn, like
3,
to describe
definitely.
it.
Hostel 3.
Oh yeah.
Like that film, there's no story to it, there's no plot to it,
No.
there's no characters, it's just murder set piece, murder set piece, murder
Yes.
set piece, or torture set piece, whatever. Like, that's what that film is there for. And like, that is one that I would feel comfortable to be like, that's torture porn.
Yes.
The first one, like, I don't feel like it's aged well. Like, I was obsessed with the first one when it came out, and I still love it, it's great, but I don't look at it in the same way. I'm like,
No.
yeah, it's a bit, the characters are all awful.
Yes.
I actually kind of want to watch them die.
Yes.
I don't feel was the point of that. I feel like you're supposed to like them.
Yeah.
And one thing I need to mention, because I love it, Hostel gave me, of course, my horse.
Yes.
I like saying that to people all the time, and nobody ever knows what I'm on about. And like, it's really funny at the moment, everyone's doing those, like, when you say something and no one gets the reference, that's me with, of course, my horse.
So I am exactly the same, and I have been saying, of course, my horse for years. And I think it wasn't until Will was watching Hostel with me, and he was like, "Oh,
no.
That's where it came from." And I had so many people message me on Instagram when I posted that I was watching Hostel, saying either Sneeper or, of course, my horse.
Of course, my horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got that to thank for it.
Yay.
Little brain bug.
Yeah, it just lives in there. I love it.
No.
I just think people think I'm weird, which they do anyway, which is fair.
Listen, I'm in that camp right there with you, love, so.
Yeah, being weird.
Some of the themes that we've got in Martyrs then, like, kind of edged around it just then. What do you pick out of it? If you were going to pull a couple of themes out of Martyrs, what would they be, do you think?
The thing that stood out to me the most on most recent rewatch is the queer story in it. Like,
Yes.
it's very obvious from the first time I watched it, but this time it became even more heartbreaking. It's my fourth time watching this. Obviously, I knew exactly what was going on. I didn't have to pay like full attention. I could just like sit there and be like, cozy film, which I know is weird. But that queer storyline in the film is just so beautiful, and just it hurts my insides to watch it.
When
and I
she
don't
rebuffs
hear
her.
Yeah, and I just don't feel like that is discussed as much as like some of the other themes. And like the existentialness of the whole film is just incredible. It's exquisite. I love it. It's sort of like the religious aspects and things, like, it's fascinating. I find it so interesting, because there probably are things like that going on in the world. Like, I don't think it's
100%.
that extreme a suggestion that people are doing things like this. And I bet some rich fucking white dude saw this film and went, that's a good idea.
Well, watching this after watching Heretic made me go, like,
I still haven't seen that.
Like, that's all about martyrs. And it's interesting, if you go and watch Heretic now as a huge fan of Martyrs, like, I'd love to know your thoughts without spoiling anything or like anything like that.
I've got a rough idea of what the film's about, but I just didn't get around to see it in the cinema, and I've managed to avoid spoilers. So
it's a great film. It's a great film. But I think less of Heretic after rewatching Martyrs, because Martyrs does a far superior job. Heretic doesn't quite go as far as Martyrs, because obviously it was in the cinema and it's had high praise, and Martyrs didn't quite get that reception when it came out. It was quite polarizing. But a lot of the themes are very similar. So this heavy religious aspect that's in there, obviously, with a film called Martyrs, this existential dread kind of feeling that you get of, is this all there is to life, is in there. And I just thought it was really interesting, actually, because I only rewatched Heretic fairly recently, and then I've gone into Martyrs. So, but I love the bleakness of Martyrs. I love how clinical it feels, how sterile that entire subterranean passageway and all those rooms are. Like, I love Lucy and Anna's story as well. Not even I hadn't even thought to pull it out in the context of queerness, just purely, especially Lucy, kind of guilt seems to be a huge theme for me throughout the film. Like the fact that Lucy has fled right at the beginning and left this poor girl behind, and then we realise that this demonic person that Lucy keeps seeing is actually a physical manifestation of Lucy's guilt. And then that guilt is passed on to Anna, and Anna has to live with that guilt and becomes a martyr. And like, she's having right at the end of these conversations in her head with Lucy, and almost makes that conscious decision to face into her own guilt, and she passes it on to Mademoiselle, who dies with it. And it almost breaks this chain of passing on guilt, and I loved that. And it all stems from Lucy. Yeah, I love the pair of them, but I hadn't thought about it through the lens of queerness, which just makes me love it more.
You can clearly tell that there, and I always get them wrong. I've written down Lucy's the first girl,
yes,
Anna's the second one, because I always get their names confused. But you can tell how much Lucy is in love with Anna.
Yeah.
And I think Anna's probably not quite realised maybe the extent of that, or whether it's that kind of, because I guarantee you've got friendships that you are almost like romantic with, but you're not physical and in love with, like with platonic female friendships. And I think for Anna it's a bit more of that.
Yeah.
And they are in love with each other, but perhaps Anna's not in love with Lucy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's how I've always seen it. And then like Lucy's just so desperate at this point. She's finally got what she wanted. She's got her revenge. She's killed the people who did this to her. And she just sort of like goes for it and kisses Anna. And Anna's like, what the fuck? But then I think Anna realizes, and then she has to watch Lucy die. And it's just like, fuck. And then she pretty much quietly just accepts everything that comes to her. She's doing it for Lucy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, that's just so, and like when she like imagines Lucy and she's talking to Lucy at the end, it's just, oh.
Yeah, because Anna is living with that guilt then, isn't she? Like you've just said about turning Lucy down, but also not believing Lucy as well, like having doubts about this family and not quite believing her until she actually walks in there. And also having doubts about Lucy seeing this demonic woman, because Anna can't see her. It's just heartbreaking. It's like, and it gets to a point in the film where it's just bleakness after bleakness after bleakness, and you're like, oh, I can't quite catch my breath here. It's getting rather depressing, but I'm very much in love with it.
What's really interesting about the demonic woman, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, is this a supernatural film?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, wait, it's not. It's like a mental manifestation of like her guilt and fear and everything. And then I was like, oh, are we going back? Like, I just kept flip-flopping between whether I thought this was really happening and it was a supernatural thing, or whether it was all in her head. And I think it's really cleverly done. And it wasn't until the scene when Lucy's on the floor and you see her smashing her own head on the wall that I was like, oh shit, right, okay, this definitely is in her head. It isn't supernatural. This is all actually happening.
Yeah.
Which sort of makes it even more of a, like, not a gut punch at that point, but just like, oh shit, okay. Like this is happening. This isn't a real demon. This is
No.
in her head. This is something that, she's got serious, serious trauma. What the fuck happened to her? And then obviously we find out because then Anna has to go through it.
It just make it too light, I think, if it had that supernatural element. I love that it's all in her head, and that is a form of us being able to see what's going on with how she's feeling and the guilt that she has of leaving that girl behind. Yeah, and even at the point where Lucy rubs her hand in the blood and is holding it up, almost to say, "I've avenged you. Like, I am sorry for leaving you behind. I've avenged you." And even then, the girl still goes after her. Like, there's no let up for Lucy, even at the point of killing the family, and rubbing her hands in their blood.
And I think the scene where she kills the family is the worst scene, like for like graphicness
Yeah,
and intensity. Because I remember watching it and just being like, whoa, and just like this is like just the realism, the way it's done.
grittiness. Yeah,
Yeah, I've never shot anyone. I've never watched anyone get shot up close, but it feels so realistic.
yeah,
And it's not over the top blood splatters. It's just what you would imagine would happen. And that to me, like, made my skin crawl. I was just like, because it felt like I was watching a documentary
yeah,
or
or
something.
snuff
Like
or
it just
something.
felt, yeah, it felt so real. And then as the rest of the film goes on and like the flaying and things, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like I didn't find that as disturbing, and like
Yes,
because you could just see this girl who is completely losing her grip on reality. She's finally found the people that she's been looking for the rest of her life, and you can just see like how crazed she is. But you've still got that doubt at that point of like, has she just gone mental? And they haven't done anything, and you're just watching her slaughter these people across the breakfast table. It's
yeah.
just like, fuck.
And I think that's
And
probably
that
why
hits the
it's
hardest.
so good on rewatch, isn't it? Because you know that
Mm,
that's coming, and at least then you haven't got your own doubt in Lucy. You know why she is doing it. Just makes it
hmm
even more bleak. The fact she's
It
got to
really is
that
bleak.
point. I think
Yeah.
the scene that really got me, like, that was horrendous with the family, but it's when Anna is becoming a martyr and they're force feeding her.
Oh, it's
It's
horrible.
just,
The goop.
considering they're not really doing anything to her other than they're trying to ram food down her neck so that then she eats, and it's just this slop and it's a metal spoon and it's clanking against her teeth. But it's the way in which Anna is reacting to that in that moment. She's so upset and so defeated. That's what really pained me watching the film.
Not watching her get it. Like, it's horrible watching her get punched and things. That
Yeah,
is horrible. But, like you said, the force feeding and that, just sort of like, fine, okay, I'll just eat it. And just
yeah,
like, you can see the light in her eyes and the life in her
slowly
eyes just going.
accepting what her fate is going to be. Yeah,
Yeah, so
that
the actual torture bits are nothing compared to the
the
emotional
emotion. Yeah,
stuff in the film. That's really like difficult to watch.
I agree. I agree completely. It definitely is this is like emotional torture over anything,
Mm.
because you could take the physical torture out of this film and I would still love it just as much, which sounds so wrong to say, but I want to talk about the ending with you, because I I felt different this time around watching it than I did the first time around, and I wanted to get your opinion
Okay.
on the ending of the film because it really sat with me this time.
Mm.
Whereas it didn't last time, and I think it was more the torture elements that made me feel really bleak and depressed last time. So we have Mademoiselle right at the end. She's
Who's
invited.
a queen? We just need to put that out there.
Icon.
Fucking love her.
And her little turban and eyelashes.
Oh, I love her. Sorry, yes. Continue.
Cosplay incoming in future from Sam.
Honestly, if I wouldn't get completely like overwhelmed and overstimulated with cosplay, it's why I never do cosplay, because I know I just get overstimulated and have a meltdown. But yeah, she would be on the list of people to cosplay as.
There we
One,
go.
it's really fucking easy, but two, she's a queen. I love her.
You cosplay as Mademoiselle. I'll do the flayed Anna right at the end.
Okay, deal.
Deal. See it for the love of horror.
Yeah.
Like I love that end scene with her where she's in the bathroom and she's removing all of her makeup and she's taking the turban off, and you've got Etienne on the other side of the door asking her about, was it clear what Anna said? And then she decides to take the gun out, shove it in her mouth, but not before she tells Etienne to keep doubting. What is your take either on what Anna said or why Mademoiselle chose to do that?
I think it's purposely ambiguous to piss us off,
Yeah.
which I like.
Yeah.
I love getting to the end of a film and going, you don't fucking tell me what happened. And I like that. I like
Yes.
that. As long as it's done in a way that is intentional and not just shit writing, I love getting to the end of a film and being so frustrated. So it could either be that Anna said, "Oh, we all go to heaven and it's very, very lovely," and then, or nothing happens after death. It's either that she's got the answer she's always wanted and she's disappointed, so she keeps doubting, I'm just going to kill myself.
Yeah.
Or they finally achieved this thing, they've had this whole experience, they've spoken to her, and she tells them nothing. And she's like, well, we finally did it, lads, but we didn't get anything out of it. And she's just so frustrated. So she's just telling everyone to keep doubting. Like, I think if it's going to be one of those two options, and it drives me mad not knowing what it is, but then that's kind of the point. It's like, just keep doubting, like, just don't find out what the answer is, because you're not going to like what the answer is.
No.
So stop looking into it. And I find her really, like, obviously she's an absolute queen. She's got all her fancy stuff, and I love that she just like slowly like takes all of this off, because that's obviously her armor. That's how she's comfortable. That's how she presents herself. But she's like, oh, fuck all this. I'm just going to take all this off. So like, it could be read that there is a heaven, and she's like, right, I'm getting ready to go to heaven. Like going to bed. I'm going to take my makeup off. I'm going to take my stuff off. But I take it more as, she's just like, there's no point pretending to be anything or anyone anymore.
Yep.
I'm just going to take off all this. It doesn't matter. And then she's going to kill herself, because whatever the answer was so awful that she didn't want to be alive anymore. And I've never taken it to be that she's killed herself to go and get to wherever our afterlife is.
Yep.
It's that she goes, fuck this. This is like what I spent my whole life, or however long, I assume, because of her age, she's probably been doing this for quite a while.
Yeah.
And you look at the room and it's mainly old white dudes. So they're like old people who are trying to like preserve this afterlife thing. I've always just taken it that she's like, fuck this. Like, I've wasted my whole life. I'm just going to die now because there's no point.
Agree.
And that's a kicker, isn't it? Like, I have constant existential crisis, but I've never believed in an afterlife.
No, same.
I've never been religious. I've never had like oh, well, when I die, I'm going to go join my grandparents and my cats in heaven. It'll be lovely. Like, I've never had that comfort. And I wish I had that comfort. Like, it must be lovely for people who believe. So you can imagine, like, if Mademoiselle and Etienne and all the people in this weird little organization have spent their whole life investing in the idea that this is going to happen, and then they're told no, or they're told nothing, like, you just fucking kill yourself, wouldn't you? You just like, well, there's no point. I'm not living a good life to go to heaven, or I'm not.
No.
Like, they've done all this work. Who they're benefiting with this work, I don't really know, but it's worth nothing at the end. So it's like, you can understand why she did it. And again, it's one of those things of being frustrated. Like, I want to know what happens after that.
Yeah.
What did all the people in the room do?
Yes.
What happened to the organization? Anna? Yeah. What happens to Anna? Like, I think she dies, right?
Yeah, she must do.
Because like, she's not going to stay alive long like that. But although Sexy Uncle Frank did stay alive quite a long time with no skin, so
Very true. Yeah, until he was pulled
could be
apart.
possible. Yeah.
Yeah. I took that ending same way as you. I thought I've seen some people take it as, oh, she heard something so wonderful from Anna that she just couldn't wait to get to heaven, and that's why she decided to kill herself. I think that, given this is a bleak AF film, I think that is far too rosy for my liking.
And just the fact she says keep doubting,
Yes,
like she's
exactly.
saying like stop looking, stop trying to find out the answer, just embrace the
Yes,
doubt, don't think about it. You don't know, so just stop looking.
agree.
I think if she hadn't said those words, it would have been very different. It could perhaps been read, but like she had that gun in her bag. Has
Ready.
she known all
Yeah.
along that this was going to happen? Like, why is she carrying a gun around? Generally in France, I don't think people carry guns around in their handbag on the regular.
No.
So there must have been some preparation, readiness for like that being the answer and her going, oh, fuck it then. Because like most people haven't got a gun in their handbag. So why
No.
has she got that gun? Has she gone there knowing full well?
She might not get the answer she wants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like if it was a suicide thing so that she could, get to the afterlife quicker, she probably would have gone home. She would have had a glass of wine. She would have like had some French baguette because French bread is the best. She probably would have gone and home and made like a nicer way to pass over into the
Yes.
afterlife rather than something so violent
Sudden
and
and
brutal as like blowing your own brains out.
yeah.
So I don't, like you said, after such a bleak film, I don't think there's like much of a read there that she's like, let's go to heaven.
Yeah.
Hooray! Like, no.
No, it just doesn't align with the rest of the film. I think it could only be that Anna has told her either there's nothing or whatever does lie on the other side is worse or the same as what we experience in this life, because the director, which we'll talk about, Pascal Laugier.
I'm not sure how to say it.
Pascal.
We'll go with Pascal.
Pascal. He'd described it as almost this pre-apocalyptic film. So he was massively depressed. He was suicidal at the time of creating the film.
You can't tell.
No, not at all. A perfectly sane person created Martyrs. They were so mentally well.
Yes.
But I think that ending reflects his view of the world, in that it's no better on the other side. Like, this is as good as it gets. And I think if I was living in that environment, well, like we do at the moment, context of the broader world, and told it's no better, and you'd spend all of that time, your life, dedicated to finding out what was on the other side, I'd probably blow my brains out as well, because I'd just go, well, what's the fucking point then? Like, I'm not going to keep doing this. I've got nothing else. And I know that there's nothing on the other side, so there's nothing else to live for. So, yeah.
My favourite part of the ending, excuse me, is not even like the scenes. It is when that, what's the word?
Title card, is it?
Yeah, but what's the definition? I've written it down.
Yeah.
Definition. When the definition of Martyrs comes up, I remember the first time I watched that, doing the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV thing, because it's saying this like from the Greek to witness. So I went into the film going, I know what a martyr is, as someone who dies for a cause they believe in. So all the way through it, that's how I was viewing the film. And obviously, Anna dies for a cause she believes in. Lucy is the cause that, she resigned herself to this because she was like, I'm doing this for Lucy. That's my read of it anyway.
Yeah.
So all the way through, I was going, well, these people are all dying for something they believe in. And then you get to the end and you're like, oh, it's about witnessing. And what we assume that Anna witnesses what comes after death because she's so close to it. She witnesses it. But then you go, we're the witnesses.
I was going to say that, yeah.
We've just, the whole film is about this desire for knowledge, and they want to witness what comes next. They want this knowledge. And we've just sat there for 2 hours, or however long the film is, witnessing this in pursuit of knowledge, in pursuit of entertainment. And then it's like, oh, we're the martyrs now. We've just witnessed this whole thing in pursuit of something. And what does it mean? And I think that just fuels the existential crisis that you get from watching this film, because you're just like, cool, that was an enjoyable film. It was really fucking bleak. And then you go, oh, you bastard.
I've contributed to this.
You've just done that to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have that existential crisis thing of like, why did I enjoy that so much? Why did I sit there and watch that? Like, I just think that's so smart. And I know that sounds so dumb, but like, that's one of my favorite parts of just that thing at the end, and you just go, oh,
sneaky.
and I was doing a little bit of reading about the film over the last couple of days, and a lot of the people in the reviews and stuff were saying about like becoming a religious martyr, and I'm like, but that's not what it's about.
No.
So whether some people just didn't watch that last title card, so whether some people just missed the title card, or I mean, it's not that deep. It's just, that's what the film's about. But I still see a lot of people talking about religious martyrdom, and it's not that. I mean, there's elements of that in there because they're obviously looking at it from like I'm assuming like a heaven. I don't think they ever say the word heaven. They just sort of talk about what comes after life. But I'm assuming there's that religious connotation to it, but that's not the martyrdom that Pascal is talking about.
And I think it depends on what lens you're viewing the film through, doesn't it? So if you have any sort of belief, if you've perhaps been raised with any sort of religious attachments, like going to a Catholic school or still practicing in religion, then you are probably going to look at the film through the lens of religious martyrdom. I'm not that type of a person, so I don't view it through that lens. And actually the biggest things that I pulled out of the film was more kind of feminist themes throughout the film, because you've got these two women who are put through absolute hell throughout the film, and it could be taken as a commentary on how far women will go, like the extent they will go to tolerate exploitation. That was a big thing that I took out of it. So I think it just entirely depends on your own mindset, your own experiences, as to what you'll go away from this film with.
Yeah, I think saying about the feminist angle of it as well, it's really interesting that women are the ones that respond to the martyring process, whatever it's called, and that they mainly work with women. But then when you look at who's working there, so the first family is a husband and wife, I think.
Yeah.
And then the next people who are looking after Anna is another man and a woman, but the woman seems to live there.
Yeah.
And then you've got obviously Mademoiselle, and there's that scary, sexy, big dyke energy lady.
Yes.
Can't
remember her name.
No, but like there's her, she seems to be quite powerful in this organization. But then when you look at the room afterwards, it's a bunch of men. So it's like the women are the ones who are like the conduit for this process. The women seem to be the ones most involved in running the process, which is upsetting because I'm like, girls, stop it.
Yeah.
Like, you should be doing this for the girlies, and you're not doing.
You're
this
not
for
a girl's girl right now, Mademoiselle.
But then, and then the blokes in the room at the end, they're the ones with the money and the power, and they're the ones like funding this. I'm assuming that's the read I take from it, and that, I find that quite interesting as well. It's not just the accepting of what goes on, it's the complicity of what goes on, and I think a lot of us are complicit in so many things by not speaking up,
enabling.
And I think it makes it that much more powerful than if men were operating that whole thing. And even if they were still headed by Mademoiselle, I think it would be very different because you've got all these men doing all these awful things. And like, yeah, it's the man that's punching her and torturing her, and the woman is the one coming down and feeding her and like bathing her and stuff. So she's doing like the traditional roles and stuff. But she, even though she's doing it for a job, and people do horrible things for jobs because they have to, you know, people work in slaughterhouses and all sorts of horrible things that they don't want to do because they need to have a job. But this doesn't seem like they're just doing a job. Like they
No.
live there. This is like a vocation. This is a calling because they want to be part of this thing. And to see women doing that to other women is just awful.
Yeah.
Like you said about the rewatchability and like the knowledge of, yes, Lucy was right. This did happen to her. And then like the bit at the end with the like, hi, you're the martyr now, hee hee. Watching it again, feel like every time I've watched it, it's given me the emotional gut punch even bigger than the last time I watched
Okay.
it because I've got that understanding of the relationship between Anna and Lucy and like the fact that these women are doing these things to each other. And I think the further you understand the film, and I don't know whether I'm understanding and interpreting it right, but like it just becomes more difficult to watch every time. And it's one of those films that people say they've watched it once and they're never going to watch it again, like you said. Um, but I think it's so inherently rewatchable. There's so much
Yes.
there to like, and I don't know why I love fueling my existential crisis, but I do. So I love watching stuff like this and just like sitting there and just being like, why?
Well,
What are we doing all this for? And
because
it's
it's
bizarre to
fun.
think that people, like I said, people probably do these things. It's wild.
And as someone who had left it years and years and years to rewatch this, I would advocate for people, if they are that sort of a person like I was, who said, I can't go back to this film, I wouldn't watch it again, it's just not for me, or it just left me feeling a certain way, so I don't think I could. Rewatch it. 100% rewatch it, because I now want to go back and watch it again, just because I watched it and then I made notes on the film in preparation for this episode, and that has made me want to go back and rewatch it again. Just, it's not even to pick out different details or anything like that, because I don't think it's one of those types of films where you're going to pick up on different things each time. But I think different things within the film will make you feel different things depending on your state of mind at the time, your experience, conversations that you have. And I just think it's actually such a powerful film. Like, it sat with me since I watched it a few days ago. And I love it when a film does something like that, where I'm churning it over in my brain and thinking about the different details and why did it make me feel that way, and what mindset was I in when I watched it, and was I due on, and was I craving chocolate? And maybe that's why it's made me a bit more emotional than normal, which has definitely contributed. But just, yeah, I love a film that feels bleak and like there's no hope and you can't quite catch a breath. And that's what Martyrs feels like for me. There's no let up in it. You are just on a grease-lined slide working your way down, and there's no clambering back to the top. You've just got to keep going until you get to the bottom.
Fact as well, there isn't even the trying to clamber back to the top, just the
embrace
acceptance of like, this is just gonna happen now. That makes it even more painful because you're like, come on, fight back, and she doesn't. She just sits there, and that's 10 times worse than any of the torture that happens in the film. And you know, I think as well, saying about like rewatching and the whole, oh, it's awful. The stuff we watch on the regular now is so much more extreme than this film that was, you know, extreme French, was a new wave
extremity
French
horror,
extreme, lots of words, New French Extremity. There we go.
There we go. Got there.
But then you look at, we all went to the cinema last year and watched Terrifier 3 in mainstream cinemas. And it's a fun film, it's a silly film, but the stuff in that film is fucking gross.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, I love it. But that now is in mainstream cinemas. And like Martyrs didn't have, I think, across the board, I don't think it had a cinema release because it was too extreme. And because it's got this legend and lore around it, people are like, oh, don't watch that. I think if they actually watch it, they'll either be like I was, like, is that it?
Yeah.
Or they'll just go, oh, it's not that bad, and hopefully just appreciate the story that's there. Because I think as time goes on, we can always go back and reevaluate and reappraise things with a more modern sensibility and going, actually, that's not that graphic compared to what I watch in the morning with my breakfast, or, you know,
eating your Cheerios.
You can always go back and say, you know, you go back and look at really old horror movies and people were like, oh, that's so terrifying, so disgusting, so disturbing. And you're like, nothing. So I think it will probably be, well, I hope reappreciated as time goes on as actually not being that disturbing.
No.
Like, Speak No Evil, that's way more bleak and disturbing than Martyrs, I think.
I agree. And the coffee table, like we talked about, is way more bleak and has a more disturbing moment in it, I would argue, than Martyrs does. And although, you know, the coffee table doesn't have this broad release, like, for example, Terrifier 3 did last year, I would love to see Martyrs on the big screen. I would love to see it being brought to a new audience. I would worry about how that new audience would receive it, because I think it'd go one or two ways. Either people have heard the lore around Martyrs and kind of dare themselves to go and see it if it was on at a cinema near them, and then be probably severely disappointed that it wasn't this torture fest that they'd almost been promised throughout legend and myth. Or you would get people like you and I who would go and see it on the big screen because we have a love for it, and it's an appreciation for it.
It's the I can't say it, existentialism that is what's disturbing about this film.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably more appreciated now theme-wise. You know, we get lots of really bleak, horrible films, and they seem to be doing a lot
better.
Yeah, think of the word then, thank you. Than they used to do. And like, have you seen the remake of Martyrs?
No, I haven't, because I've heard it's terrible.
I don't want to, but also I want to because it's terrible.
Yeah.
I just want to see what an American studio would do with it. Like, have they sanitized it? Have they like made it more Jesus-y? Like, I'm just
or
really
maybe
curious.
lent into the torture, if that's kind of the stuff that gave Martyrs, the original, this infamy. Have they lent more on the torture side of things, like the physical torture, rather than the emotional turmoil that our characters go through in this film? That's what I would imagine.
I do need to see it. I'm not spending money on it.
No.
If it pops up one day on Netflix or Prime or wherever, I'll be like, oh, go on and I'll watch it. But I'm not hiring it, and I'm not buying a DVD of it.
Well, people...
And I own some shit on DVD.
I'm the same.
Good money for absolute shit, but I'm not doing it.
People can let us know in the comments then if they have seen the remake. Like, what is it? What makes it different? What makes it so shit compared to the original? Because we would love to know, and we'll respond perhaps once we've seen it.
Yeah, I hope it did push people back to the original to be like, okay, this is the remake. Let's see
what that's about. Because
sometimes it does go the other way around, where like you watch like The American Ring. That film scared the shit out of me. And I avoided watching the original Japanese film for probably about 10 years because I was like, if the American one's scary, the Japanese one's going to kill me. And I was like, oh, it's really kind of boring. And
I was the same with The Ring. Yeah. And
so I think a lot of people go back to stuff because
Yeah.
of that. But I know Martyrs didn't do particularly well, the remake, because I think it already had that reputation.
Mm.
But I think now people are capitalizing on those reputations. Like, look how many films are now doing the whole like, oh, people were sick in the theater, and oh,
Ugh.
especially Terrifier 2 and 3.
Mm.
Like, I always look at it as being hyperbolic, and I'm like, yeah, sure, Jan,
Marketing
okay.
campaign, yeah.
Yeah, but the notoriety of Martyrs when it was like 2014, somewhere around there,
Yeah.
probably, I think, the remake came out. It was just another remake, and I think people were just like, well, I'm not going to go see that because I've heard about that film and it's disturbing.
So why would I watch it being remade? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've not heard one person ever say a good word about that remake. But
Mm.
it's interesting that someone chose to remake such a well, it's the same as like Speak No Evil. Like, why did that get remade? Like, I
Yeah.
love the remake; it's
So do
great.
I. Mm.
Of all the films out there in the world to remake, why pick a really bleak, horrible one? Like, I'd do that. But for
For
the
the
vast
masses.
majority of yeah, for the cinema going public and the DVD renting public, why are you making this one?
I wonder
So
if
I
it's
find it
not
really
as bleak
interesting.
then, thinking about the Speak No Evil sort of effect
But what
versus
I
the
find
original.
really interesting is, do you know who produced the remake?
No. Production wise, no.
Jason Jason Blum was
Oh, get
behind.
fucked. Oh.
So I don't think it was a Blumhouse production, but Jason Blum produced it. And I know Pascal regretted ever selling the rights to it because it was a pile of shite.
Now I feel like I
Um,
want to watch it just to hate on Jason Blum even more than I do
I
already.
know. Like, I've got a weird relationship with Blumhouse. Like, the last two films they put out, I feel like they're utter shit. But also, I'm like, oh, Blumhouse, I'm gonna watch it. It's gonna be good because I've got that early Blumhouse like nostalgia
Hope.
hardwired into me that I'm like, Blumhouse means good, and then I'm like, oh,
No.
okay.
Well,
So
yeah.
maybe it would have been an early Jason Blum production. So maybe it is good.
Well, I always remind myself that Get Out is a Blumhouse production.
Yeah.
Like, and that's one of my favorite films of all time. It's just the shit that they trudge out, churning it out every year,
Hmm.
like all this crap. So that's made me even more intrigued to go and watch the remake now. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll go and I want to rewatch this anyway after us having talked about it. But now I want to do a rewatch back to back with the remake.
Mm.
I'll report back. Anything else that you want to discuss or mention on Martyrs that you love about this film?
Well, not so much that I love about this film, but what I find very interesting is we were talking about the treatment of women and
Mm,
the complicity of the treatment of women and blah, 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 blah. And by all accounts, and it's on the record, it was an absolutely awful set to work on, and Pascal was awful and treated
I
the
read
women
this.
terribly.
Yeah.
One of the girls fell off the soundstage and broke her leg or her foot
Couldn't wait for
and had to
6
have
weeks.
yeah, and like there's a featurette thing on the Blu-ray, and they talk about this, and it's sort of like, oh, I fell off a thing, which is fucking terrible. And from watching that, it gave me horrible feelings. I was like, which I found really interesting that it was actually on the Blu-ray, but I felt very much like these actors weren't respected
No.
or they were just there. Their safety wasn't a concern. They were shouted at. They were spoken to poorly, almost like being
Crap.
sat in that fucking chair
Yeah.
and like being shouted at and belittled and degraded. And I don't know. Might be that Pascal, what's his face, would say, "Oh, it was part of the character development," because I know they were isolated from the rest of the
Yes.
crew um, to put them in that headspace, which I kind of get that, but that whole like method thing when you're the
Mm,
director doesn't wash. So
no.
I just find that really interesting, and it makes me feel a bit like because I'm like I love this film, and like you said, it feels like an inherently feminist film, but then knowing how it went down on the set and like the disregard for the cast's safety, and accidents happen. Accidents happen all the time. But why is someone falling 3 meters off a platform?
Well,
Like, she's lucky she didn't die.
why are they reported as going back to their trailers and crying themselves to sleep at night after the way they've been treated on set? So I think it's fine to say that a film has feminist themes, which it definitely does, but I wouldn't class Martyrs, for the reasons that you've described, as a solely feminist film. It's just got fantastic feminist themes in there, but it does sound like they were treated appallingly on set by Pascal. And clearly he was not in a great mindset either at the time of creating the film. Not that that's an excuse.
And it's given them that performance, and you hear all these stories, you know, like Stanley Kubrick and
Bill
Shelley
Friedkin.
Duvall.
Yeah.
Yeah, like treating Shelley Duvall terribly, and she gave an incredible performance. But then her poor brain was broken for the rest of her life. And
Yeah.
I know she'd had other like terrible things happen in her life and stuff, but that was probably incredibly formative to her like later mental health issues,
100%.
being treated the way she was on that set. So you'd hope with stories like that out there that that wouldn't still happen. And both of those actresses gave incredible performances, absolutely incredible
Agree.
performances. And to my knowledge, I've not seen either of them in anything else, but I feel like they wouldn't be recognizable in anything else just
No.
because of like the way they are in the film and the way they act. You know, if you saw them in something else and they smiled, you'd be like, don't know who that
Not a
is.
clue, no.
And then they're all puffy and beaten up and stuff. So I wouldn't recognize them, but I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't acted in anything else after doing that,
Probably
because
been
it does
put
sound
off.
like it was awful. Which, and then it makes me feel really bad. It's like when you love an album and one of the band turns out to be a sex test, and then you're like, oh, well, I still love this album, but it's tainted now.
Yes, I
And
can't
then you
enjoy
think,
it in the
well,
same way.
everybody else in the band didn't do anything wrong. We don't want to discourage their art, but then you just get that icky feeling. So it's a tricky one. But it's just that weird like space of like
Ickiness.
feeling icky about something, and you're like, and unfortunately, a lot of that happens in all industries, but I hear stories all the time about directors and different people
Yeah.
that just makes me feel icky. And then films that I love get a little bit tainted, and I'm just like,
Breaks your heart a little bit.
it's really sad. And like on a film like this, I know he was obviously in a really bad place, and you can see that in the film. But those women should have had the most wrapping up in cotton wool, kid glove treatment ever. And
Yeah.
like you said, like for them to go and cry in their trailers, I completely understand that, because what they've had to put themselves through physically and mentally to be in that film, the release at the end of the evening of crying must be incredibly cathartic. But
Yeah.
to know that they were like physically in danger, they were being spoken to like shit, they were being shouted at, they weren't being
No form of
appreciated, I
aftercare
guess.
in there for
Yeah,
them whatsoever.
exactly that. There's no aftercare. Like,
No.
you think they'd have, I know it's very different now, because what one was this, 2008?
Yeah,
It's
7 or 8,
quite
yeah.
a long time ago, yeah. Like, I know now that people in those roles would probably go into their trailer and there'd be a therapist in there, and they'd be like, right, okay, we're going to talk about,
Well,
we're
and
going
you'd
to
have an
unpack
agreed
this, we're going to,
aftercare plan as to what's going to work for
yeah,
each of the girls, yeah, to kind of come down from that
that,
experience. It's almost like
they,
kink, like coming out of a scene,
mhm,
that sort of a thing. But clearly none of that would have been in place mid-2000s.
yeah,
No. A
which
shame.
is sad, really.
A
Yeah,
shame. Oh, maybe I won't rewatch it. No, I definitely will.
no. Another cool thing is like the demonic woman, I think she's referred to. She was like a dancer contortionist,
Okay.
which is why her like physical presence and like her movements and stuff are so like impactful and like she's very scary. She's horrible,
She's terrifying.
but
Yeah.
also very graceful in her movement.
Mm.
And you can see that. I think she was like actually naked for like the duration of the filming. I remember watching in the special features, like they were saying about like casting her and stuff, and I think she just spent the whole time naked, crawling around on the floor,
You ain't got any
which
washing
is
to do,
a
have you?
choice.
So
That's a bonus
yeah.
actually, yeah. But yeah, like the, I said earlier about like how realistic stuff is, like the scene when the woman from the bathtub is just like hacking in. It's not often I have to go and
Yeah.
look away a little bit, but when she's hacking into her wrist and like, and then like there's a little
Well, it's
slappy
like
slap.
I was going to say, it's a chunk of her arm coming
Mm.
off. Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, I can't like that. So like the prosthetics and I guess you could say creature design. I know they're women, so that sounds really awful to say creature design, but they have been like dehumanized to the point of becoming creatures, I
Yeah.
think,
Well, I read that
in this weird process.
the special effects makeup artist Benoit Lestang,
Oh, what a good name.
Benoit Lestang, unfortunately not with us anymore because ended their own life a few months before the film even premiered. So
Oh.
don't even know anything else that Benoit's worked on, whether this was a one and done because of that. But
I
what a
wonder if it was like a
massive shame.
catalyst. Yeah.
Yeah, well, potentially could have been. We don't know. But I feel like it's such a huge loss anyway. But given how special the special effects are, ridiculous saying, in this film, so realistic.
Like when they're pulling the staples out of her head and like
Yeah,
you see the blood go.
spurt.
It's
Yeah,
exactly like you imagine would happen.
yeah.
And it's just, oh, it's brutal. And it's not, again, it's not gratuitous.
No,
Like it could have like everywhere, but it doesn't. It just sort of goes like,
just a little
like a
spurt.
little pulse. Yeah.
Well, and it's more
Um,
about in that moment, like she is absolutely covered, bruised, battered, scarred, cut open. It's more about the
in a
rest of
weird
her.
little chastity belt.
Yeah, little metal pants and a little metal goggles. It's more about that than it is that little moment. Like that's not the main thing. It's more Anna trying to wash her
Sensory
and comfort
yeah.
her, and because she can't do that to Lucy, so she's almost guiltily washing this woman, realizing, oh shit, what Lucy said was true.
There is a documentary
Oh.
called Martyrs versus Censorship,
Oh,
which,
okay. Interesting.
because of all the furore around the film and how it got bought, and then it was like, oh, it's not going to go in the cinema, it's going
Yeah.
to go straight to DVD, and all the cuts that were made, I think there was like 58 cuts made of the film. Someone went off and made a whole like documentary about it, which I haven't seen, so I need to track that down and see if I can find it, because you know me and a documentary, I bloody love a documentary.
We love a behind the scenes as well.
We do.
Maybe
So
need to
I
watch
know in my
that.
luck I'll look into it and it's on the DVD and I've already watched it. But that the name didn't ring a bell, and I feel like if I'd heard the name Martyrs versus Censorship before, I would have
You
been
would have
straight
known.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, well, that'd be interesting as well, given it came out right at the end of this torture porn era. Like 2009 was when that kind of really came to an end, because Hostel 3 went straight to DVD, Human Centipede 2 went straight to DVD, and I think audiences had grown tired of these types of films. So I'm not surprised at the amount of cuts that would have had to have been made in order to try and get it any kind of rating. So that'd be interesting to see, actually, given it was a late 2000s film. Okay,
I am a
Martyrs
little bit
versus
sad you're not
Censorship.
covering Human Centipede.
Oh, I might throw it in there as a little bonus at the end. I'm really enjoying covering torture, actually. It was the same when I did Gothic. I kept adding little films to my list. I always intended when I started this podcast I'd cover like between 4 and 6 films, and actually it's working out maybe 8, maybe 10. So like before I know it, I'm gonna have 26 weeks dedicated to one subgenre. That'll be when we get to The Exorcist.
Yeah, but this is what I love, because I listen to the podcast
Yes.
anyway, and the more episodes I get, the happier I'll be. But I've
There
got
we
to
go.
say something about Human Centipede. The third film is the only movie that, in my recollection, that I've ever actually nearly been sick. And it'll be for a reason that you probably won't expect, and I won't tell you what it is, but I literally felt, when you burp up a little bit of sick and you're like,
Yep.
I nearly did a sick when I was watching it, and I've
Okay.
never had that happen in a film before. And it's for a weird reason, so I won't spoil that for you, because then you've got to go watch it and see if you can guess why I was nearly sick.
Oh.
But interesting little tidbit there for you. I've never nearly puked watching a film before, but I did watch it in Human Centipede.
This is just
3.
making me want to watch it, like, and maybe do an
I
episode
really
on
like
the
the second one.
franchise.
It is disgusting and depraved. It is gross. It is awful, but I liked it.
I like the second one, and the guy is Harvey.
Lawrence Harvey.
I
love him.
He was at Leeds Horror Fest a few weeks back, and I saw him and just like said hello. And he looks totally different.
Him.
Like you can tell it's him.
He's so cute.
Yeah, but he's so dinky.
And cute, and I love him. I've seen him at Fright Fest. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to say hello to him yet, but I've watched a bunch of other films he's been in, and he's really good. If you get a chance to see Fister anywhere, it was on at Rilla Thriller last year, but I think you'd gone home by the time it was on. It was on really, really late. It was on at like 11 o'clock. I think. God,
no. Yeah.
It was giving me like Tetsuo, the Iron Man kind of vibes, but also with like some kind of like weird Black Mirror element to it. But he was great in it. It's one of those things like Human Centipede 2, when you watch it and then you see him in the wild, you're like, oh, fucking hell. You don't want to make eye contact with him because of the weird shit you've seen him do. Yeah. But he's a nice guy.
Maybe I need to add Human Centipede as a franchise, as a little bonus episode as part of Torture then, because I do love the first and second one. I fell asleep during the third one, so I've never properly watched it. So it could be...
It's not great.
No, but I think going into these films, you know that they're not great, but there's great things in them. Like, the concept is great. I mean, it's the first one is 3 people stitched together mouth to anus. That's fucking fantastic. Brilliant. Who came up with that? I love it. I'll have 14 of them right away. Give me more. Like, and that's why we got a second one and the third one. So I think maybe you've convinced me. Maybe I need to do a little Human Centipede episode.
I am sorry, and you're welcome.
You are absolutely coming on again and giving me more recommendations for podcast episodes. So,
hooray!
Well, thank you for coming on. Do you want to remind people where they can find you online so they can come and stalk you like a little gremlin?
Oh, don't stalk me, please, but come talk to me about movies. Horror, Halloween, and Home on Instagram and TikTok. And I also, my tummy's rumbling. And I also have a podcast, Horror Hyperfixations, where I am just a little neurodivergent gremlin getting excited about films and talking to other, well, not always, but sometimes neurodivergent gremlins who also talk about things they like, because I love hearing people get excited about things they love. Yes, sorry, that was a very long.
It was
Here's
perfect.
where you can follow me.
Do go and follow Sam. Fantastic content. Always great recommendations for films, physical media as well. Like you've got a great collection. You've always got a good recommendation. I saw you got a physical copy of The Coffee Table recently, which is bloody gorgeous. So
beautiful. Oh, I squealed when I opened that envelope. like it's not the thing. If you see a girl open a package, you go, like that. You'd expect it to be like, oh, a puppy, flowers. No, it's The Coffee Table on Blu-ray. Horror girlies aren't built like other girlies, are they?
We're built different. There you go. You can go and see Sam squealing at the coffee table being delivered in a little package. So make sure you go follow her. And if you want to follow me online, I'm at Rate Scary on Instagram and YouTube, and at Scary Zara Mary on TikTok, Instagram, and Letterboxd. So do make sure you like, subscribe, follow wherever you are listening or watching. Thank you so much again, Sam. I'm sure you will be coming on here again. I'll find another little film for you to talk about. But there you go. You can be a regular. But for everyone else, sithy with this then. I'll see you soon.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
I'll be right back.
Game over. It's all for you.
Beware the moonlights.
An excellent day for an exorcism.
I'm your number one fan.